All right, so we're live. I'll do the countdown here in a minute, but I've got my good friend, longtime friend who I hadn't seen in a while, Chad Reeder, and Chad and I know each other from our much younger days in Haynesville. And Chad, first of all, I'm glad to have you on the show, but second of all, we were just laughing. I try to tell my kids we grew up in almost, I mean, we watched the Dukes of Hazzard as kids, but it was almost the Dukes of Hazzard between the local Haynesville cops and us little kids on three wheelers and motorcycles. They would chase us around town.
Oh, absolutely. You can't do that kind of stuff anymore, Rex.
No, nobody believes me when I say that. My kids think I'm crazy, and I'm glad I have somebody from my childhood on this show who can
They can,
verify
yeah,
all the stuff that
yeah,
we used to get into. You
absolutely.
you remember the Claiborne Parish Fair? That was
Oh, sure.
the one day we could all ride our three wheelers and motorcycles and dirt bikes downtown without getting chased by the cops because they'd let us in the parade and then they'd let us ride home.
That was the biggest day in Claiborne Parish when the fair came in September. That was such a big deal.
It absolutely was. All right, well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and hit the countdown here, and that's about 2 or 3 minutes. And that gives people time to get their Facebook and YouTube notifications and join the show. When it comes out of the
Okay.
countdown, I'll be on solo for just a minute or so, and then I'll bring you back on and we'll get started. Folks, we're going to talk about tiger bass and their impact on Lake Claiborne and anything else that we can talk about, including riding three wheelers as children. And whatever other kind of shenanigans we could get into. All right, I'm gonna hit this countdown, folks. We'll be right back. Y'all grab some popcorn, grab you a drink, text your friends, let them know I'm actually on. It's been about a month since I've done a show, and we'll be right back with my good friend Chad Reeder here in just a couple of minutes. All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Outdoor News. This is show number 15. We're going to be talking about tiger bass, and I wanted to take just a minute to thank a couple of sponsors. AirRef Inc. If you need air conditioning or heating or any of those type of mechanical needs around your house or anything commercial, residential, give AirRef Inc. a call. I'd like to also thank Duke and Kara Lowry at Acadiana Mortgage, as well as the Ferrises over at Pelican Training. And we're going to talk about the tiger bass, who pays for them, the Lake Claiborne Watershed Commission, and how all that works. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my longtime friend and guest tonight back in the show. Let me click a button, and can you hear me, Chad?
Got you. Got you loud and clear, Rex.
All right. Well, perfect. So we're just going to have a conversation tonight, and you'll see me kind of look to the side sometimes because I'm glancing at notes and all that. But what I want to talk about is Lake Claiborne, obviously, and the tiger bass, because that's been a big issue that a lot of folks around here, especially if you're in outdoors and bass fishing and all that, we've all heard about the tiger bass. So first of all, let's talk about Lake Claiborne. All right, so
Okay.
Lake Claiborne is, I believe it's what, about 6,400 acres.
That's correct. Uh-huh.
Okay,
6,400 acres.
and if memory serves me, it was started back in the 60s, and I think the water started flowing over the spillway maybe 1968 or something like that. Of course, I didn't start fishing until the early 80s with my dad. But I mean, Lake Claiborne has been a great fishery, but like any older fishery that's a few decades old, they have their kind of peaks and valleys. But here recently, man, there have been some big stringers of bass caught in these tournaments and all that up there. So why don't you tell us, maybe just start off with what this Tiger Bass F1 Bass program is, and that whole process kind of got started with the Watershed Commission up there.
Okay, well, the way it got started, we kind of linked up with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, and they come to our watershed meetings, and we were talking about releasing fish in the lake and what we could do and not do. And what we discovered, if we went through a certified hatchery, that we could, as a committee, as a parish, uh, introduce fingerlings into our lake. So that's when we started kind of doing the research on different bass and brim and what have you, what we may be interested in, and introducing into our lake. And we came across this F1 tiger bass. And the selling feature to it for us was their aggressiveness and willingness to bite an artificial lure time and time again. So that was what we wanted, was participation and success for the average angler, and that's what got it all started. And I knew some people also that had some ponds with tiger bass in them, and to verify this, and brought in one of my good friends, Homer Humphreys, a professional fisherman, along with a biologist with wildlife fishery. So we weren't just shooting at the hip. We did a lot of research before we started putting these fish in the lake.
Yeah, and you mentioned Homer Humphreys. I've known him for decades, and Homer's been a great guy. And then I probably were you the biologist? Was that Jeff Sibley from the Wildlife and Fisheries?
That's him. Yep.
Yeah, Jeff's a
Yep.
great guy too, and super knowledgeable. So for those of you that don't know, that maybe hadn't fished Lake Claiborne, it's up there near Homer, just a few miles from Homer. And if our memory serves me correctly, we've got White Lightning, which is Highway 146, kind of runs along the southern part of the lake, and then Highway 2 runs up along the northern side of the lake. But
Mm-hmm. That's
Claiborne used to be and I guess it's coming back now, but used to be an awesome fishery. I know back in the 80s when I was in high school, I went to Ruston High, and we used to fish Claiborne all the time and into the 90s, and we used to catch tons of fish. Not necessarily great big fish, just lots of numbers of
mm-hmm.
quality fish. Now, since y'all started the program, kind of walk us through the history, when y'all started releasing these tiger bass, and we'll get to talking more specific about the tiger bass. But have y'all seen any increases in the weights of fish or big fish being weighed in? Kind of give us a feel for that.
Okay, well, absolutely. We've seen, originally this was a 5-year project that I had kind of brought to the board, and I keep saying, I mean, I say I a lot, but I'm just one voice on a committee of dedicated people that want the lake to be the best it can, possibly be up here in Claiborne Parish. But it was originally a 5-year project. And about year 3 along in there, we started noticing on the little weekly Friday night tournaments and things like that, that these bag weights started to increase. And now, fast forward this year being our 7th year, and let me back up just a minute. It was originally a 5-year project, but we were getting so much positive feedback from it. We have brought it up again, and we voted in yearly now, and it's just been voted in unanimous every time to keep introducing these fish to the lake. In conjunction with the tiger bass, the last 2 or 3 years. It's been 3 years. We actually missed 1 year, but we've been introducing some copper nose, 25,000 copper nose bluegill,
Really?
and
Okay, so
and
uh,
80,000 on the tiger bass each year.
all right, so I'm going to switch screens for a second here, and I've got a couple of pictures that I kind of yanked from y'all's website. Let me do a little button clicking here, and it'll change over here in just a second. All right, so what I've what I've got here is off y'all's website, and that's showing looks like about a 2 inch, maybe 2.5 inch fingerling of those tiger bass. Is that pretty much what they look like?
That's what That's what we tell the public. They're 2 inch. I didn't put a tape measure on them, but they're supposed
Right.
to be 2 inches when we
Yeah.
introduce them. Now you can get them, if people are interested in stocking a pond or what have you, various sizes. But we put the 2 inch fingerling in here.
Yeah, and I did a little homework. So at 2 inches is when they really start foraging less, or you know, stop foraging on the zooplankton and start actually becoming true predators. About that
Hmm.
size range where they're hunting fish. So how many of them? You said y'all are doing what, about 80,000 of them? Was that correct?
That's correct. Uh-huh.
All right. Do y'all release them at one location, or how are y'all doing the releases? I mean, what determines where you're going to put them at?
It's a very good question, Rex, and I'm glad you asked that. What we do is try to include the community and the anglers, local anglers, in the project. So we'll all meet at a local landing here on the lake called Kells Cove, and that's where we meet. And we have oxygen filled bags, and we'll put the bass and brim in those. And as long as you come in a boat, we'll let people come and get a bag of fish and go release them throughout the lake at their favorite fishing hole. And the benefit of that is most of these people know where structure and things like that are throughout the lake and where they like to fish. And so it helps us distribute the fish, across the lake. This year we put out a little over 100 bags. And then which really doesn't put a dent, when you're talking 80,000 and 25,000 and stuff like that. When there's around 300 per bag, we go and disperse the fish at various ramps around the lake.
All right, so one of the advantages, and doing my research with the tiger bass, and I think you kind of hit on it earlier, was that the tiger bass it's actually a trademark name. So,
That's right.
to use the word tiger, you gotta, I guess, pay homage to the AmericanSportfish.com people and all that. But anyway, it's a true F1. It's a cross between two pure subspecies of bass, a special strain of aggressive northern bass and a pure strain of Florida bass that come from a proven trophy line. And the American Sportfish is the only hatchery licensed to produce and sell the tiger bass. So
that's correct.
All right, so I've been on the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries for a while. As a matter of fact, I had Secretary Sheehan, the new Wildlife and Fisheries Secretary and Director, on a couple of shows ago. And I was really, really, really encouraging her to look at what our friends over in Texas are doing with their Share Lunker program, that they do in conjunction with Toyota, and they've got sponsorships, the state does, and how that program works. And they have a fish hatchery in Athens, Texas, which is like a tourist destination. And they're doing, of course, their own breeding and hatchery system. And so I really applaud y'all for putting these tiger bass in there and trying to, in effect, create your own breeding program on Claiborne Lake itself. So talk about the impact that can have, maybe it already is having, on Claiborne Lake and the surrounding communities and the surrounding businesses.
Okay. Once again, what a great topic, point to bring up. Our goal is, let me back up. We don't have a lot in Claiborne Parish, but we do have a lake, Rex, and we're dedicated to make it the best it can possibly be. At the end of the day, or what are we after here? Okay, is it the next Louisiana state record? Well, that would be great. What we're really after here is success. The average angler, once again, to come launch his boat and he and his kids or whomever he may be with have a good time and catch some fish on our lake. All right, what are the spin-offs from that? There's more bags of ice sold, more gallons of gas sold, more fishing license sold, locally and stuff. So that's what we're after, to try to spur some activity around here.
Yeah,
I got a circle of friends, Rex, and it wasn't uncommon for them to latch on their boats and head out to Texas, like you just said earlier, in hopes that they'll go catch a 10-pound bass. Well, what we want to do is keep these people here and maybe even encourage others, to come here to give our lake a little recognition.
absolutely. One of the benefits to Claiborne Lake is, and I fished it, I don't know, thousands of times. I hadn't been but just a few times in the last couple of years. But Claiborne is a beautiful lake. It's a true reservoir in Louisiana. And Claiborne's average depth is pretty good. I'm not sure. It's probably 15 feet, maybe 20 feet. I don't know. But it's not a typical what folks imagine in their head as a Louisiana lake full of cypress trees and, shallow water and alligators. Claiborne is a gorgeous lake, and it's great for fishing and also other water sports. So, it's not just the tournament guys that are spending the money. It would be those other folks that want to come over and just have fun with their family and maybe stay at the state park.
Oh, absolutely. We have the state park. It's not just for RVs and campers or what have you. We have cabins at the state park. Several B&Bs around the lake that you can stay at. And you're right. It's as good for the recreational boater than as the angler. And I don't know if you're aware of this. The pylons, all the major boat roads, we have marked with pylons and blinking lights and what have you throughout our lake, from Lisbon Landing, which is the farthest end of the lake, all the way to the dam. You really don't even have to be that familiar with our lake to navigate safely from one end of our lake to the other. All the major boat roads and channels are marked with pylons. And I know I'm kind of rattling on here, but we have lights on top of these pylons that work off satellite. So they're satellite controlled. So, for instance, if you go down what we call the 1,000-foot channel, it's one elongated blink all the way down that channel at the same time, every pole. If you turn down Isaac Creek, it's two quick blinks all at the same time down those poles. And it's throughout the whole lake that way. Every major channel has its own blink code.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I think it was, I can't remember, a year and a half, 2 years ago, a buddy of mine and my wife and his wife went and got a cabin at the state park for the weekend, and we decided to go out there and do some night fishing. Honestly, hadn't been on Claiborne at night in a long time. It got dark, and I looked out there and I told Mike, I said, "You got to come out here and see this. You're not going to believe this. It looks like a runway down the whole light." I mean, I remember the days running up and down there at night in a 1,000-foot channel, and
Yeah.
there was barely any markers, much less
Yes,
lit
sir.
up markers.
Absolutely. Yes, I remember that very well. I do. I do.
Yeah, and for those of you that aren't familiar, I've got a map pulled up here. So where I've got the finger, I know it might be hard to see if you're, just seeing this on your phone or whatever, but if you'll pull up a map of Lake Claiborne and you take a look, this wide open area right here around the dam is pretty much wide open. And then right
Mm-hmm.
here where Bo Peterson's point is, or I guess still called Bo Peterson's, but that's really where what we call the 1,000-foot channel starts. Now it's actually more than 1,000 foot wide, way
It
longer than a
is.
1,000 foot,
That's
but
right.
it's lined with timber on each side. But most of that timber, has fallen over at the water level, and so y'all now, correct me if I'm wrong, but y'all have channel markers on pretty much either side of this to mark the boat road all the way up here to Beaver and Darbone and all that.
Right. That's correct. All the way up to Lisbon Landing.
Yeah, and if I remember right,
Uh
Lisbon
huh.
Landing's way up Beaver Creek, if I
Right.
remember right. Okay, yeah,
That's
been a while
correct.
since I've been up there, so
Uh huh.
it's much safer for boaters if they're there late in the evening, early morning, or just want to ride and look at the lake at nighttime. Claiborne's a wonderful thing. All right, so enough about the sales pitch on Claiborne Lake because it's a great lake to visit and it's easy to get to. But you mentioned that y'all were putting about 80,000 of those F1 fingerlings in there.
Uh
Now,
huh.
the website was quoted as saying that there's about a 50% survival rate. Do y'all
50
have
to
any?
60%.
Well, and I don't want to belabor the point too much. Most of the survival rates for the 2-inch fingerlings are 10 to 20%. Do y'all have any data yet, or have y'all talked to the wildlife and fisheries? Have they done any studies yet or anything?
What we want to do is do a and when you say a study, what you do is go around. You can do a shock test. Well, you can't go around shocking public waters on your own, so all that has to be done accordingly. But what we want to do is do a test like that, and in conjunction with that, check the forage out in the lake, because the success of the program is the forage in the lake, and that's what we're needing to know at this point. And we're in that's in discussion now to have the a test done. And we were had some these little vials of alcohol with the little tubes that we were encouraging the anglers to take a clipping off of off the fish. But
Right.
anyway, the lab that you send them to kind of closed down on us. So we're in the process of finding a new lab to do some genetic studies and things like that for us.
Yeah, I want to make clear to everybody. A lot of people think, oh, you can look at a fish and tell whether something's a northern or a F1 tiger bass, or like in my picture, they actually look like a tiger. The only way to definitively tell is to do the genetic testing.
I am glad you said that. That is,
Yeah.
you are 100% correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So I'm going to bring up another. It'll take me a second here. Let me switch screens on us again. I'm going to bring up a study because I've had extensive discussions with Jeff Sibley on all these sorts of things. And I had a wildlife biologist on my last show. He's around Georgia and all that. But I wanted to point this out. So you may not can see it. And folks, if you're watching on mobile, I understand. But this is from the Wildlife and Fisheries report, their latest report. I think it's 2021 or 2022. It's available on the Wildlife and Fisheries site. I'll link that after the show or whatever in the comments. But it's very interesting. And this is what I want to kind of stress on. To date, 8,885 and 842 Florida bass fingerlings have been stocked in Lake Claiborne by the Wildlife and Fisheries. Genetic testing conducted in 2010 indicated only a 12% Florida bass genetic introgression. Now, they started stocking them in 99. So within about 10 years, there was about a 12% influence, I'll call it, of the Florida bass. Genetic
Right.
sampling was done again in 2018 prior to the joint stocking effort of the F1 hybrid by the Claiborne Parish Watershed District. The sampling revealed a 17% Florida bass genetic introgression. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I had Jeff Sibley on a while back, he kind of clued me in on something because a lot of folks think, oh, well, they released, 80,000 Florida bass. That means there's going to be 80,000 pure Florida adults. It's not the way it works. They're constantly, the northern strain is constantly wanting to be the dominant strain, and they're introducing the Floridas to help bring the Florida genetics, the size genetics up. And with these tiger bass, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, because this is my understanding of it. These tiger bass are a mixture of the, as we discussed, a mixture of the northern aggressiveness, Florida largeness, and that's what y'all are trying to do as well, is keep that mix ratio up there with these F1s. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now,
Okay.
Rex, changing the dynamics of a lake is a pretty large project. It's not an overnight deal whatsoever. And I'm not a biologist, but I do know, that much. So it is a long process to get those genetics and stuff like that in your lake, as you proved it on the information that you had right there. So it's not a one-time dump 80,000 fish in your lake and drive off, and you've just changed the entire lake. It is something you have to stay on top of.
Right. And that's what I want to stress to everybody. And, of course, there's the raging debate in the bass fishing world with live scope and all that. But what live scope has shown us is that for every one fish we catch, there's, I don't know, 10, 20, 50 more fish down there, whether it's bass or white perch, it doesn't matter. And you mentioned something there that I think everybody needs to key in on. Even though Claiborne's not a huge lake, Claiborne's what I would call an average medium sized lake. It's still a large undertaking that y'all are doing to try to keep get these F1 tiger strains and get that genetic percentage up. How long do y'all plan on doing this? How long is this project going to be ongoing?
Rex, I'm going to do it as long as they'll let me. Uh, as long as we keep getting the positive feedback and we start doing some genetic testing and see the positive results and can actually get a graph and show where we, get a baseline going and see where we started and where we are today. Uh, I think it will continue, to be to be a project for us. The community is excited about it, and when I'm telling you these bag weights increased, we had one last year was 38 pounds. We're talking 5 fish, Rick, and then several in the 30s. Now, if you're not in the mid 20s, you're not even competing. Whereas just you know a few years ago, 11 pounds would win and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to say that every one of these fish in that bag limit is all a tiger bass, but some of them, are. But
Yeah, the
we are,
influence is starting to get there.
I just, it's all happened in the last, 3 or 4 years, and this is our 7th year of a project. So it's kind of coinciding with when we started implementing these bass. But certainly not to take anything away from the wildlife and fisheries that are also introducing Florida bass and stuff like that in here. We're really excited about it. We're starting to gain a little recognition from outside our parish. Major League Fishing has come in and Mossback Outdoors putting structure in our lake, and we had some big heavy hitters come in and help us with these projects. Your Kevin Van Dams and your Gary Klein, professional fishermen came in and helped us with some of these projects. So it's kind of a scuttlebutt that we may be an up and coming lake that you said just kind of revived an older lake, and hope who knows, we may host a major event here one day.
Might be coming pretty soon. All right, let's talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of this deal because number one, the tiger bass are not free, and I don't know what they cost, so I want to try to get into that. The Lake Claiborne Watershed Commission, I believe y'all are a taxing authority, correct?
That's correct. And the
Okay, so
tax is brought up for vote, and it wins by a landslide every year. And what we try to do as a committee, and really have been focused on, is being as transparent as we possibly can with the community. To let them know where these tax dollars are going, as far as a fishing pier, for instance, that we built recently. Um, Rex, being a single parent is not an uncommon thing these days, and everyone can't own a boat. So we decided if we were going to put fish in build a pier, and if we're going to put fish in the lake, let's make it accessible for everyone, for the single parent. So we built a real nice fishing pier. Now we have a project on the table now that we're talking about even making that wheelchair accessible. We've redone some parking lots and lighting and repaired some boat ramps. We got a lot going on the lake just besides introducing fish into the lake.
well, yeah, and look, I don't make any bones about it. I'm about as conservative as it gets, but I realize that to make these lakes function, we got to have some tax dollars to do this and some money to do that. And I think when we see government bodies and government entities taking those tax dollars and putting them towards projects that we can see and we can see the positive results, I think that's a great thing. So I want to ask you because I've got a public information request into the Claiborne Parish Police Jury, and maybe you can't say, and if you can't, that's fine too. Any idea about what these tiger bass stockings cost, either individually on the fingerlings or let's say in an 80,000 fish release, fingerling release? Any idea about what those projects cost?
Well, they're costly. I know that, but you know, I would hate to give you an exact dollar amount and then be wrong on you know a program like this. But I can tell you this: we can answer any question that you have when our secretary and all that's with us on the 27th of this month. We're going to have a meeting which is open to the public, and and we I tell you, it's very informative, and I would encourage anyone that can hear me now, or yourself. I would personally invite you to the meeting, and any question you may have, somebody can answer it.
Yeah, I'm planning on coming up to that meeting because here's the thing. I'm a big fan of Claiborne Lake. I'm a big fan. I grew up fishing Darbone as well and Caney. I fished Caney since there were still a bunch of willow trees and pine trees before the water started going over the spillway in Caney Lake too. And it's just seems that y'all are doing a really successful thing on Claiborne. And if some of these other lakes and communities can kind of replicate that or get some ideas, I think that's a good thing. It's kind of that rising tide floats all boats. If we can get folks in here, because look, all Claiborne, Darbone, and Caney are all within an hour's drive of each other.
Uh-huh.
And you got
That's
three
right.
Great Lakes and three communities, around the Jonesboro Chatham area, around the Farmerville area, around the Haynesville and Homer area that could absolutely use those that influx of folks spending money.
Exactly. Rex, the average working guy, and that's what Claiborne Parish is full of, just working folks like myself, are taxed to death, and they want to see representation of where that money is going. And that's why we try to be as public about it and transparent about it as we can possibly be. And it's been such a positive impact because finally these taxpayers are seeing where some of their money's going.
Right. Yeah. Well, look, you can see it real easily. Just go to Claiborne when those lights come on the channel markers, and you can see it clearly. All right. Let me see if I've got a couple more. Oh, the Claiborne Lunker Program. Let's
Uh-huh.
talk about that for a few minutes. And I don't know how long you have, so tell me, if we're getting close to time, you got to head out or anything. But I want to spend a few minutes, and I'm going to switch screens again, and let's talk about the Claiborne Lunker Program. What is that? How did that idea come about? Give me what you know about it.
Okay, on the Lunker program, once again, it was just to encourage fishermen, anglers to come to our lake and participate. As we started gaining that, these bass that we were catching 10 plus pounds and things like that, we decided to implement a Lunker program to encourage the angler not only to come fish at our lake, but also to release that fish because that's the genetics you want in here to produce other fish that size. So that's the idea behind it. And in doing so, we'll, mount the fish and stuff like that for you. You have to turn it in at one of our certified spots, which is Kells Cove and also over Pleasure Point.
Right. All right. So there's a phone number down there, and I know it's hard to see, folks. I'll try to put it in the comments later. The phone number is 318-624-6793. Now, I think is that to the Watershed Commission, Chad? Is that the
It
whose phone
is
number that
that
is?
that's
Okay.
our secretary carries that phone. I would like to say that it was answered 24 hours, but you know as well as I do. But anyway, it will be answered in normal working hours. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, and so I want people to know that that is available because I've been very critical of the wildlife and fisheries, not the biologist guys. That's not who I'm talking about. Jeff and those guys, if they were able to do all this stuff that I've got on my wish list for them to do, I think they would. Matter of fact, I know they would in a heartbeat. So it when I say the wildlife and fisheries, I'm talking about the bureaucracy behind it.
Sure.
Um, but I'm also glad to see that y'all are doing this lunker type program that will allow people to be able to get those fish weighed on certified scales and get some recognition. I hate to say it, it's a shame that you guys have to fund that when, again, we look over there at Texas, and Texas has their share lunker program. They've got corporate sponsorships behind all this, and all we have to do is look at their model and follow it. But I am glad to see that on a smaller scale around Lake Claiborne, y'all are able to do that. Whose idea was that, or how did that come about?
Well, I'm not really sure whose idea. It was just one of the ideas that was brought up at one of our committee meetings, and wow, we jumped all over that. What a great idea to implement that. So that's kind of how we move forward on it.
All right. Well, anything else you want to share out this evening?
I,
By the
hey,
time this,
I would like to throw in if you do catch a fish like in the middle of the night, say 1 a.m. because night fishing is very popular on Lake Claiborne. Uh, and you want to introduce it in or submit it to the Lunker Program, what you would need to do is measure the girth and length of the fish, record it on your phone, and show on the phone where you have released the fish, and then show somewhere on the bank that we know that it was Lake Claiborne or what have you, and we will honor the Lunker Program then also.
All right, good deal. And so I've got Ricky Bridges watching. He's also part of the Bass Life Association, and they have a replica and lunker type program that they do on. I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, Ricky. They do it on Caddo and I think Bistineau and maybe Toledo Bend. Correct me if I'm right. And Halston. Um, they fund theirs through the banquet. So the point is that it's great to see that y'all are also doing that as well. So let's go down the laundry list of stuff that the Claiborne Watershed Commission is doing. Y'all are helping set up places for people to fish and piers and facilitating fishing off the bank for folks. You're releasing tiger bass and trying to get that process going to attract bigger tournaments in. You're releasing copper nose brim and all that, so you're not just forgetting about the perch jerkers, as we bass fishermen affectionately call them. You've lit up Lake Claiborne like a runway so that you can run it safely at night. I mean, what's next on the list?
Well, we have several little things, and I don't want to spoil all the surprises today, but we've even discussed a little tree program when we drain the lake every 6 years, 7 feet in some of these coves, maybe even uh, introducing a few cypress trees and stuff like that in some of these coves it's just structure for the fish and also for various wildlife. It's good for the environment, birds, etc. So we're talking about other things like that, but I just don't want to blow the whistle on all of our stuff tonight.
Hey, I'm just glad you shared out a little bit of the secret stuff that y'all have planned for the future. Well, look, Chad, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed reminiscing about our days at Haynesville. And
Absolutely.
uh, uh,
Uh-oh, did I lose you, Rex?
I got you back now.
Okay. All right. Well, I noticed the battery on my phone's about getting kind of weak, so I may lose you here in a minute.
Oh, that's all right. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Look, I'm going to plan on coming up to the meeting. I think you said it was on the 27th.
That's correct.
All right, so I'll plan on showing up there, and I was just telling everybody I really appreciated you coming on, and I appreciate all the stuff that the Lake Claiborne Watershed Commission is doing. Y'all keep up the good work up there.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Rex.
All right, Chad. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and hang you up. I'm gonna close out the show, and hey, you're welcome back on anytime. I'll see you on the 27th.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
All right, thank you, Chad.
Uh huh.
All right, folks. Well, that wraps up that edition on the tiger bass. I hope y'all were able to learn some stuff. And I hope that some of the other communities that may see this around Caney Lake, around Darbone, and all that, maybe y'all got some ideas. Reach out to the Lake Claiborne Watershed Commission. Hey, try to reach out to Chad. They're more than willing to talk to you about it if you want to look at introducing these tiger bass and how they were able to work with the wildlife and fisheries in Louisiana to get this program implemented and all that. I've got a lot more planned. I just did a meeting with the Caddo Commission on the Earl G. Williamson boat ramp closing situation. It was closed for over a week. It's back open now. But I went up there and did a presentation in front of the Caddo Parish Commission. I've got that video that I'm either going to release tonight or tomorrow, and you'll hear what I was able to tell them and suggest to them on that. I plan on doing more of these outdoor news shows. I certainly plan on doing more than I think it's been about a month, but just bear with me. I've got lots of other political content that I do on Bossier Watch and Louisiana Watch, and sometimes the outdoor news stuff gets pushed a little bit to the side burner, but we're trying to ramp that up. I've got some content coming from my good friend Duke Lowry. He's got a crawfish farm of all things in Plain Dealing up there around Plain Dealing. We got some video footage from that. So y'all stay tuned. Look, I'm going to talk some more about high school fishing and the numbers. Are they increasing? Are they staying the same? Or are they decreasing in our area and also other areas around the country? So I've got some numbers to share on that. I've got a show planned on that. So hopefully I'll get to that here in the next week or two. And look, just tag and share those folks out. Share the show out, folks. That's how you can help me out. And we'll get the word out. Next time, I will try to have another guest and try to go a little bit longer and bring some more interesting information to everybody. Appreciate y'all watching. Thank you, folks.